a stranger with a gun came upon 2 teens taking pictures under a rising full moon. But violence is only the beginning of this story.
Sometimes I thought, there are no miracles. Yeah, there are, and this is a big one.
I'm Amy Donaldson, and I've spent my career talking about how lives are undone by violence. The Letter is a podcast about how lives are remade. Follow The Letter at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction. But more importantly, Dr. Matt, it's about
recovery.
And my road to recovery began with Pinnacle Recovery. If you know somebody who needs some help, have them do what I did and give Pinnacle Recovery Center a call. So it's New Year's Eve.
Right.
What are your New Year's...
excited?
Yes, yes, I really am. So I'm going to do something with my kids. We're going to do fireworks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fireworks are legal.
Going big time.
Yeah.
Are they legal this time? I guess there's not much of a fire risk, right?
No, but they are legal on New Year's Eve.
They are legal.
At least as far as I know.
Well, we're going to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my mom would have us do people do this is sort of embarrassing.
Bang pots and pans?
Pots and pans.
Yeah, we did that as a kid.
Did you guys do that?
Yeah. But it was never the good pots and pans.
Because I'm looking around as an adult, I've never seen anybody else do that. I've never lived in a neighborhood where people came out with pots and pans, but we did that.
Yeah, we banged pots and pans.
Okay.
I remember my little brother Ryan got in trouble once because he used the good pot.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't take the good pot out there.
Got the all-clad out there smacking it around.
You can't be doing that. No, this was like the stuff that was in the camper or in the very back.
Okay.
They still had egg fried on it or top ramen, you know. Yeah,
I like the pans at my house.
Or the little poppers.
Oh, yeah, we got the poppers. I think we have some this year. We don't have any fireworks. Maybe I could look into that, make a run up to Wyoming or something.
And I think there's actually some places around here.
Are they selling them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But now it's one of those things is like, now that I'm sober, I don't see past 10 o'clock a lot.
Right.
I'm ready to go into bed about 9:30, and, you know.
When the kids were little, we would do New York New Year's Eve. Oh. Right? And so it was 10 o'clock, and we'd turn on the TV, psych them out. They would think that they celebrated New Year's when we put them to bed.
This is not the New Year's Eve you're looking for.
Exactly. But now I want to do that for myself.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. New York New Year's Eve, and then I can go to bed.
Tell me it's time to go to bed, Ryan Seacrest.
Exactly.
I'm ready to go.
But you probably... how do you plan New Year's Eve now that you're sober? In the past, it was probably what? Like
I got to hit the liquor store before they close.
Yeah.
I've got to make sure there's a club I'm going to that's going to have a table.
You might have been DJing parties,
DJing.
right? Yeah.
I DJed last New Year's Eve at Maxwell's, and so I'm just excited to be with my kids. And really, this is a big New Year's Eve for me because this is my first year sober. I mean, I know I've got...
Last year you were sober on New Year's, but it was just coming... Were you out of recovery yet?
Yeah, no, so I was about 3 months out. I got out in October, and but this is kind of cool. So I can't imagine... where I'm at right now. I mean, I couldn't have fathomed it, a year ago.
Yeah.
And all these cool things, going to speak to the court system, doing this podcast with you, out there working with Pinnacle Recovery, helping people get on their road to recovery. So it's amazing. So, they say you
fireworks instead of fire water.
That's right.
On New Year's.
I like what you did there.
Yeah.
Fire water is a cinnamon whiskey for those who don't know what that is.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. It was pretty good. It isn't.
It isn't good.
Yeah.
No, this is about recovery.
We're digressing, yeah. But I'm really excited because you need to pick a word for the year. That's what they say. That's the new thing now. Pick a word that's going to define 2020 for you.
Oh, that's pretty heavy.
So if you had to pick a word.
If I had to pick one word.
That you would focus on, that you would put your attention behind.
Enthusiasm.
I love it. But you've got a lot of enthusiasm.
I could use more. I think there's certain areas of my life. The last few years, I've gotten off track with my fitness, and I think that's something I could use a little more enthusiasm for. And certain areas of my work. I love working with the people I work with, patients and clients, but there's a lot that I do on the academic side that I think a little more enthusiasm for would be fun. So maybe that would be my word. What's your word?
Being thrown on the spot like this, the thing that popped into my head first, and I usually go with that, momentum.
Oh, okay.
And I want to take the momentum that I have right now and keep pushing forward in it. But I also want to take that momentum and use it in all aspects of my life, with relationships, with my kids, with my job, with my family, and just keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I like that. That fits you.
So
well,
I'm going with it. I'm not going to get a tattoo of it or anything, but that's what I'm going.
Get a tattoo in Chinese characters.
Speaking of tattoos, let's go to our guest. His name is Casey. He's from Ogden, and you've got a lot of tattoos, brother.
A couple.
What was your first tattoo?
It was Chinese.
Producer Josh has probably the same one.
Yeah.
And, so, Casey, we always like to start from the beginning. How does your story begin?
My story begins in Sunset, Utah, really is where it begins. I was raised by a single mother. We didn't have very much money. And it was pretty tough times. My mom didn't really know much about raising a kid, it being her first kid. My dad left at a young age, and she was in a frustrated place, and she used to beat me all the time. I had a rough childhood growing up, and this is kind of how this is going to go. So when I was going to school, I wouldn't have very nice clothes and stuff like that. I used to get made fun of a lot in school. And I remember going to junior high school. There was a lot more kids. It wasn't just the old elementary. Now we have kids from all over the area. And there'd be people that were picking on me because I wore floods. I just didn't have very nice clothes. And I remember there was some girls that came up to me and was like, you're a pretty cool guy. You got a good attitude and, you seem really friendly. Maybe you should dress a little bit differently and, maybe more people would pay attention, to you and come talk to you instead of making fun of you.
So they were being genuine. They saw something in you.
They did. And,
like a makeover in elementary school.
But elementary school makeover.
Well, it was junior high at that time.
Okay.
Junior high at that time. Unfortunately, what I didn't know at the time is that when I changed the way I dressed, I seen all these kids in school, the bad kids, like the bad boys, and I'm like, oh, man, you see those guys those guys are cool. Everyone's walking around acting like they're cool. I'm like, I want to be one of those guys too. So I changed my clothes. My mom actually came up with some money, which was great because typically she was beating on me, and I was pretty surprised that she decided to get me some new clothes. So she got me some new clothes and everything, and I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. I thought it was the good crowd, the in crowd. It ended up being the wrong crowd. So when I was 13 years old, that's when I first started using marijuana, 13.
And that was the crowd that you chose to hang out with. And I think that's kind of a common mistake. I mean, those kids look kind of tough.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling on the outside, you want to feel tough and good about yourself. So you start to dress like them and hang out with them. Is that right?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And there's an allure to the bad boys. I mean, there really is. I mean, there's industries and there's musicians and all these guys that play to that part because it is appealing to some.
And when you're 12, 13, 14 and you're trying to figure out who you are, it really is important to fit in. It's really important for your self-esteem, your identity, to have a group that accepts you. And so adults listening to this, if you can't remember being that age, don't be too critical on kids that choose to be kind of in that bad boy club because you're trying to feel good about who you are. But with that can come behaviors that aren't productive. I guess you got wrapped up in a few things.
That's exactly right. So in my time of hanging around some of these people, I started getting introduced to, well, first off, I want to get the girls. Let's be honest.
Right.
The girls like the bad guys.
Yeah.
And I was all about that.
That's the only reason we comb our hair.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, really. You got all the hormones going. It's like, all right, I'm going to hang out with the bad guys, get all the good girls. Right. It didn't work that way. By the time I was 14 years old, hanging out with these people, I started smoking crack cocaine at 14.
So 13 was marijuana, but by 14
you were
smoking crack?
I was smoking crack cocaine and taking LSD at the age of 14 years old.
That seems crazy to me.
It was crazy.
That escalated pretty quick.
It did. It started from just, smoking weed at friend's house. I'd sneak out of my house, go to these guys' house, even leave school and, smoke a joint behind school or over at a buddy's house. It seemed innocent at the time. And when I was growing up, my stepdad was actually a drug dealer. So I was around, marijuana at a young age. And I didn't really get this really bad vibe from it. But all the other drugs like cocaine, things like that, I always told myself I'm going to never do that. And unfortunately, that came a night where it was presented to me, and I was like, yeah, why not? Why not? Just to fit in, And that was...
Were these other 14-year-olds? Or
they were old. They were older
kids?
too. Yeah, some of them were in high school. Some of them were a little bit older.
And that's even harder to resist when you're that age.
Right.
If a high schooler wants to hang out with you, that's pretty powerful, right?
Yeah, and that's what it was. It was alluring to be around all these older guys.
I'm not going to be the guy that says no. I'll be the first to say yes.
That's how I'm a send it kind of guy. That's how I've always been. F it. That's the way I have been.
Yeah.
And so, I started hanging out with these guys, and I think these older guys, seeing how I was, this kid doesn't care. I mean, he's younger than us. He don't care. Like, he's doing whatever we want.
So they're almost praising you.
Yeah, exactly. And it made me feel good because when I went home, it was a different environment. I felt like my mom didn't want me. I felt like she didn't love me. She didn't care about me. Even though she had got me some clothes, I mean, there was times where she was just beating the crap out of me. She'd make up reasons to beat the crap out of me. My stepdad's a drug dealer. That's all they seem to care about is drugs, beating on me. Yeah, just be quiet and we'll give you this and move along. So while I was out with these guys, I felt like these guys care.
You found a family.
Yeah, these guys care. And by the time I was 15 years old, moving forward a year, and I was doing this stuff, and during this time I was getting into little troubles with the law, sloughing, running from cops, just doing silly stuff in the neighborhood. I ended up getting introduced to a guy who was using crystal meth, and I was 15 years old at the time.
It's the story of an American held in a dark Venezuelan prison.
Then all of a sudden they all kind of lined up. They pointed their guns at me. And this is the point where I thought, I'm going to die today.
I'm Becky Bruce. I spent a year working on Hope in Darkness, which now has more than 2 million downloads. Find it on kslpodcast.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
How old are you now?
I'm 36 years old.
Okay, so this is 16 years ago.
This was a long time ago. So it's crazy looking back now, thinking, I have a 10-year-old son, right? I was 15 years old and I was smoking methamphetamines in somebody's basement at 15 years old. And I mean, like, the first time I done it, I was like, whoa, like, this is crazy. Like, I've been up for like a day. I feel fantastic. This is the best thing this is amazing. How do I get more, And I started acting out. I started not going to school more. I started fighting back against my mom at this point because I felt empowered. These people I'm around were making me feel wanted and empowered, Plus, I'm high. I mean, how do you make rash decision? How do you make any logical decision like that? You don't. So then I started getting incarcerated. So I was 15 years old, and right before that, I got introduced to a street gang too. Right at the age of 15, and I joined that gang. Again, acceptance, right? And I ended up getting in trouble. I was about 16 years old. Kind of moving quickly through the story. First year of high school, I went to Northridge High School. I was in that high school for probably maybe a month. I mean, I was showing up to school high. I mean, I was drinking vodka on the bus. I was taking Ambien and going to school and wandering around school not knowing where I was because people thought it was cool. I mean, looking back at how ludicrous was this. But
you were developing a reputation, right?
Absolutely.
And you had to keep up your rep, and that's what people... You were kind of like, I don't know, somewhat of an entertainment probably for people like, wow, look what he's doing, right?
Absolutely.
The stories about Casey were amazing.
Your identity.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how it was. People knew me, and I had a reputation to live up to, and I didn't care. So I ended up getting a charge. It was an assault charge. And I spent, from the time I was about 16 years old, I was about 16 and a half from the time I was 18, in youth corrections. So I got out of youth corrections on my 18th birthday.
So you spent 2 years in a youth correction facility for an assault?
For an assault, yeah. And it was like a year and a half. And a lot of it was my behavior inside of the facility, right? Because I was holding out.
Didn't humble you getting put in the
Absolutely
facility.
not. I mean, it was like a graduation. You know, it's just hard to describe that these guys you're listening to rap music. People are talking about going to prison, jail. I mean, this is something that seemed normal to me.
This is part of your story.
Right. I mean, and my stepdad, while I was about, you know, in the time I was talking 13, 14, you know, I kind of skipped that. He had ended up getting busted for drugs and going to prison. So there was a big drug bust at my house. So this was all over around me. And we're talking about this little small town here. I mean, we're not talking about the middle of Salt Lake. We're not talking about West Valley. I mean, this is kind of unassuming. You wouldn't think that these things were going on.
You blink your eyes, you drove past Sunset.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very small place. And the neighboring area, you know, we were all around that area running around. So I get out on my 18th birthday, right? And right when I got out, what did I do?
Party.
Yeah. I jumped right back into it. I got a job. My first paycheck was like $260. I went and bought a quarter pound of weed with my first paycheck and quit that job. That's exactly what I did.
Let me ask you this. While you were incarcerated at the youth correctional facility, did you stay free of drugs and alcohol?
Yes. Yes, I did. Yeah.
And during that time you were in there, did you go to classes? Did they try to teach you life lessons?
Yes, they did. Yeah. I didn't care. I just didn't care. I didn't care. I don't know why. I can't answer why I didn't care. Maybe it was my home life. Maybe the people outside, I looked up to them so much that it just didn't matter. Or maybe they didn't seem genuine to me. It was like, you can't relate to me. You don't understand what it's like to live where I live. And, you know.
You haven't seen what I have.
Yeah.
Well, and don't you think it's, I mean, the way you're describing your early upbringing, you know, there's some abandonment there. I think it makes sense that you wondered if your mom really loved you the way you were being treated. And you'd finally found an affiliation, a connection with people that felt like you were important to them. And I think we really underestimate how powerful that is at any age, but especially when you're that age. And so if you had listened to the life lessons and changed your way of seeing the world inside the facility, you would have been giving away that connection, that affiliation. And I'm assuming that part of you wanted to hold on to that. You were just doing your time until you could get back to that group of people that supposedly cared about you, right?
Right, and I thought about them often more than I thought about my family. I mean, I had grandparents that were great, okay? Like, so I did have that piece. I had grandparents that lived out in Hooper, and they were great people. They helped me, but I wasn't always around them.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I think that's one of the things that we see people that are heavily and at an early age involved in gangs. The gang becomes a surrogate family, and they want to hold on to that. That's part of the identity. That's part of the connection. That family that you find in a gang. Most of the kids that are heavily involved in gangs, for the most part, don't have loving, supporting families. They're substituting their family connection with the gang affiliation. So
and family does what family does. They stick together.
They stick together, right? Yeah.
Right.
So you get out, you get a job, you get $256. You buy how much weed?
Quarter pound.
And you quit your job.
Of dirt weed, yeah, and quit my job.
What was your plan with that?
Smoke it all.
Okay.
As quickly as possible. Maybe sell half of it. Just continue to feed my addiction, you know. I just wanted to party. I just wanted to have a good time.
Then where do you go from there?
So I kept doing that, and matter of fact, I started using methamphetamines again, okay? And the gang was calling back. You know, this whole lifestyle was calling back to me. And I had been gone away for a little while, and I hadn't been in contact with them. That made him upset. And what ultimately ended up happening, which really propelled me into a whole nother mind state. Basically, since they were so unhappy with me, they set me up and tried to have me killed.
Wow.
The gang did.
The gang did.
They turned on you.
They did. One of my best friends turned on me. They held me in a apartment for 3.5 hours, beat me with baseball bats, tire irons, stabbed me 11 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was bad. I mean, fractured skull, brain damage, collapsed lung.
That sounds a lot worse than bad.
It was terrible. It was bad. It was bad.
Sounds
It was
like
on
you're
the news. It was
lucky
bad.
to have survived that.
Yes. And what happened from that, and I didn't want to tell on anybody. it happened to Kmart, And
I got jumped.
Yeah, and the cops were like, "Hey, then there ain't nothing behind Kmart." I'm like, "Well, it was Shopko then. I don't I don't really remember." I'm like, "Look, heads
So
half
you
caved
were
in."
still trying to not rat out.
Absolutely, because I was angry. That level of animosity that was shown towards me just enraged me to undescribable levels. And that's what propelled me even further into addiction, even further into drugs. After that happened, I started continuing to use meth. It made me – I didn't trust people.
But were you out of the gang at that point?
I was out of the gang at that point.
Okay.
But I was still hanging around this crowd of using drugs. And it just kept getting deeper and deeper. And I kept digging myself in a deeper hole. I mean, I was holding my own friends. I was like holding my own friends hostage because I was so paranoid that these people I thought cared about me. It's like you two in this room right now are like, "Hey, come in here," and then try to beat me to death. So now anytime I go around someone that says, "Hey, come over here," what am I thinking? Especially if I'm high on meth.
Yeah.
You're
paranoid.
I'm paranoid. And I'm having delusions because I've been up for a couple days. And I'm thinking, hey, these guys are going to kill me. Hey, they're my friends. And I'm taking them and tying them up and holding these guys at gunpoint.
So you were literally holding them hostage.
I was literally holding people hostage. I was...
Whoa!
Yes. I was acting... It was unbelievable what I was doing. I mean, I knew... And what I ended up getting in a situation where I got in a police chase. Okay, I got away and ended up at my grandparents' house, and the SWAT team came. That day, there was a cop in my local city who ended up basically saving my life, saving me from the SWAT team coming and, getting me. Talked me into giving myself up, And that day, I realized that I was going to stop using methamphetamines. That's when I quit. I was about 20 years old, I think, at that time.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.